A coworker once turned down a $4,000 raise, not because she disliked the job, but because she believed taking that extra money would push her into the next tax bracket. She did some quick napkin math and concluded that crossing the threshold meant her entire salary would suddenly be taxed at a higher percentage, leaving her with less money in her pocket overall. She felt pretty clever avoiding the trap. Her math was wrong by about $3,000 a year. By refusing the raise, she voluntarily handed back thousands in take-home pay. She isn't alone in this. Researchers at the American Enterprise Institute surveyed working-age adults and found that 51% hold this exact same belief. Half the working population thinks the rate of their top bracket gets applied to their entire income. This creates a widespread financial illusion. People think they're dodging a tax trap, when in reality, they're stepping right into a math trap that caps their earning potential. This animation illustrates how that myth works in our heads. We picture income as a single bucket. If one extra dollar tips you into a higher tax bracket, the label on the outside changes, and you assume the new, higher rate colors every dollar inside. But the U.S. federal income tax system doesn't use buckets. It uses a staircase. This model shows the 2025 federal tax brackets for a single filer, starting at a 10% step and climbing to a 37% step. Your first $11,925 sit on the 10% step. The dollars you earn up to $48,475 sit on the 12% step. Further up, the 22% step ends at $103,350. The golden rule of this staircase is that climbing to a new step does not change the rate of the steps beneath it. The dollars you've already secured on the lower steps keep their original, lower tax rates forever. Only your new dollars pay the new rate. The United States has operated on this progressive marginal mechanic for over a century. The top rate has swung wildly, from over 90% during World War II down to the high 20s in the late 80s. But the underlying logic of preserving the lower rates on earlier dollars has remained identical. When you cross a threshold, your bracket label changes. Your actual tax bill only increases proportionally for the fresh income standing on that brand new step. Let's run the exact numbers on my coworker. Before the raise, her $100,000 salary generated roughly $17,100 in federal income tax. Her effective tax rate, the percentage she actually paid, was 17.1%. Now we drop her $5,000 raise onto the top of her income. The first $100,000 isn't touched by the IRS. It stays exactly where it was. Because the 22% step ends at $103,350, the first $3,350 of her raise fills up the rest of that step. She pays 22% on that chunk, which is $737. Only the remaining $1,650 spills onto the 24%. She pays the new 24% rate solely on that tiny sliver, costing her $396. Add those two tax bites together, and she pays about $1,133 in tax on her $5,000 raise. She keeps $3,867 in her checking account. Even though she technically entered a higher bracket, her effective tax rate barely twitched. It climbed from 17.1% to 17.4%. She kept almost 78% of her raise. The math shows exactly how harmless these thresholds are in practice. The math holds up at higher incomes too. Take a software engineer earning $195,000 who gets a $15,000 promotion. That jump crosses the steep 32% threshold. The first $195,000 remains untouched. He pays 24% on the little bit left on that step and 32% on the rest. His total extra tax is around $4,600. He still takes home over $10,300 of his raise. Part of the confusion comes from payday. When you get a raise, your next paycheck might show a dramatic spike in tax withholding. Payroll software often briefly overestimates your annual income based on that single larger check. It feels like a penalty, but it's just an overwithholding that gets refunded to you at tax time. There are also specific subsidies, like the Earned Income Tax Credit or Marketplace Health Insurance, that do phase out sharply at certain income levels. But those are separate credit cliffs. They have nothing to do with the income tax bracket system. The federal bracket structure is mathematically incapable of leaving you with less money after a raise. The difference comes down to two terms: marginal rate and effective rate. Your marginal tax rate is the tax applied to your very next dollar. It describes the slope of the highest step you currently occupy. Your effective tax rate is the average tax you pay across every dollar you earned that year. Because your earlier dollars are taxed at lower rates, 10%, 12%, your effective rate is always significantly lower than your marginal rate. A single filer making $100,000 sits in the 22% bracket, but their effective rate is usually 17%. Your bracket is a description of your top edge, not the overall cost of your income. People shape entire careers around avoiding that top edge. They reject overtime hours. They pull back on freelance work when they get near a threshold. Over decades, those small refusals compound into a massive shortfall against what they really could have earned if they didn't fear the math. That American Enterprise Institute study points out that this misunderstanding acts as a literal drag on the economy. Real people intentionally limit their output based on a system that doesn't actually exist. The next time you file your taxes, run a simple sanity check. Take your total federal income tax paid and divide it by your gross income. That resulting percentage is the truth. You can let go of the fear of higher brackets. A raise means more dollars taxed, yes, but the math guarantees it also means more dollars kept, every single time.